Yo, what's good everyone? Today is going to be a different kind of video. We are going to be doing something I've never done on this channel. Are you ready for it? 3, 2, you guys already know by the title and thumbnail. I don't know why I'm doing this. Today, we're going to be ranking every arc in Berserk from best to worst. We're not going to be doing a tier list. I'm just going to be ranking from 1 to 5, which is the greatest and which is the worst arc in Berserk. Now, before I begin, of course, sub to the channel. You guys need to sub to the channel, okay? It's my birthday. The day this is going up, it is my birthday. Happy birthday to me. If you want to give me a birthday gift, like the video and sub to the channel, okay? There you go. That's your birthday gift to me. But without any further ado, let's begin talking about Berserk arcs. And starting off with number 5, I have the Black Swordsman arc. Now, I want to clarify that I don't consider any arc in Berserk to be bad in any way. Not at all. I actually think every arc in Berserk is great. I think all the arcs are absolutely beautiful. Now, I'm just going to start off with the Black Swordsman because that's the arc that isn't as good as the other 4. Now, the Black Swordsman is the shortest arc in Berserk, we know, right? So, it spans 9 chapters, I believe, and nothing crazy happens in the Black Swordsman. The thing that makes it a good arc is the foreshadowing towards the Golden Age. So, the Black Swordsman is more of a mystery arc. It's like an opener to introduce us to the characters and the graphic themes of the show. Basically, Guts going around slicing people, killing apostles, doing that kind of thing. There was a moment at the end where with Guts and the girl, Guts and the God Hand. Those are some great moments in the arc, in the 9 chapters that it had. But overall, it wasn't anything absolutely breathtaking, especially considering that it's the first arc in the story. And for most readers reading these first few chapters, they have absolutely no clue what the hell is going on. But the Black Swordsman arc, in my opinion, had great foreshadowing, introduced Guts, and overall it was a solid starting arc. Now, number 4 is the Fantasia arc. So Fantasia for most people is number 5. I've seen a few of these videos, and for most people Fantasia is at number 5. Now, for me, the reason Fantasia is not number 5 and the reason it's ahead of the Black Swordsman is because of chapter 359, where Casca gets her memories back. Now, the reason this is so significant is because this is one of the most important scenes in the entire show. This is the scene that we've been building up to ever since the end of the eclipse, right? Casca getting her memories back. And so that actually happened, right? That is huge. Like, that is a huge part of the story, Casca getting her memories back. So it was also really emotional. It was also really beautifully drawn and written. That's why I have Fantasia over Black Swordsman, and that is why the Fantasia arc is as good as I think it is because of that moment. I also love how when Guts saw Casca again, it wasn't all like beautiful. We see the darkness around Guts, and that's just the truth of the eclipse, and that's how it's gonna have to be for the rest of the story. And that is absolutely sad. It was tragic. It was devastating to see that, but it made a lot of sense, and I really enjoyed that part of the Fantasia arc. But besides that, there wasn't much else that happened in the Fantasia arc. We obviously have the creation of Fantasia in the previous arc, the Millennium Falcon, but we didn't have much in the Fantasia arc itself. We had a bit talking about the God Hand, the past God Hand, the Skull Knight's backstory, stuff like that. But for actual context, there wasn't much. But overall, Fantasia, solid arc in Berserk, and that is the number 4. Now, number 3. This was difficult, okay? This took a long time for me to decide which one to choose. But at number 3, I have the Conviction arc. So, yes, the Conviction arc and the second place arc were very difficult to rank for me. By far the hardest of this list. And the reason I have Conviction under the next arc is because, well, now that I realize I can't really talk about it because it's going to spoil what's next. But let me just talk about the Conviction arc for a second here. The Conviction arc was beautiful. It starts off with a Lost Children chapter, which is one of my favorite parts of Berserk. It just showed so much between Guts versus Rosine. One of the best fights in the entire series for sure. The emotion that Guts showed was incredible. And that whole arc was just beautiful, seeing a kind of a different side of Guts, right? After that, we had the Binding Chain chapter. That was great introduction to Farnese, who would go on to become one of the best side characters, period. And then the Birth Ceremony chapter. Now, this was beautiful because Casca and Guts reunited for the first time in 2 years. That was such a huge scene in the series, and we see these beautiful panels of Guts showing how much he appreciates and cares for Casca and how he wants to protect her, and that was incredible. And obviously, the arc ended off with the rebirth of the man himself, Griffith. The rebirth of Griffith was super important, as we know, towards the story, because Griffith would serve as the final antagonist, and this was just an incredibly important part of the story. Now, another thing that makes Conviction so good is the development of Guts. This arc is where we really start to see Guts' development from becoming a one-sided mercenary to more of a kind and caring person, developing into the person that we all know and love today. And this is a huge part for him. This arc is huge for his development. That is the reason Conviction arc is so high as it is. It's also the second longest arc in the entire series, I believe. But overall, the Conviction arc was absolutely phenomenal and a great sequel to the Golden Age arc. Now at number 2, we have the Millennium Falcon. Yes, Millennium Falcon arc and the Conviction arc went back and forth for me. They've always kind of gone back and forth, and the reason that I have the Millennium Falcon over it is for many reasons actually. Number 1, it's longer, it has more content, that's obvious. But the main thing for me is the beginning of the Millennium Falcon arc. The Hill of Swords, where Griffith visits the Hill of Swords, Guts sees Griffith again and absolutely flips out. And there's a single panel that I think was beautifully drawn, and it's the panel of Guts raging towards Griffith, and you just see Casca behind him. That was one of my favorite panels in the entire series. Has so much depth to it and it's so incredible. And also Guts versus Zod, probably my favorite fight in the entire series, just because of the meaning it had. Him trying to charge towards Griffith, and then of course he continues his journey with Casca. And now the war between Midland and the Kushan begins, as we know, and this was an incredibly important part of the story as well. And also another thing, I mentioned the Conviction arc that happens even more in the Millennium Falcon is Guts' development. Guts' development was probably the best in the Millennium Falcon arc than any other arc in Berserk. We also get to meet many new characters like Shurka, Seppuku, and Farnese. They join the crew, and basically they begin traveling with Guts, and this really changes Guts to becoming more of his former self with the Band of the Hawk. This arc was absolutely phenomenal because of how many fight scenes there were, because how much development Guts gets. We also see a lot of Griffith. We see way more Griffith than we have in any other arc. Griffith was such a huge factor, and it's especially nice because we get to see development in Griffith too. I mentioned that we see development in Guts before, but we also see a lot of development in Griffith, him developing into basically the god of the world, basically like Jesus of Midland. Like, everyone looks up to Griffith as the White Hawk, and he really develops into that character, just like Guts develops into a more kind and caring person in the Millennium Falcon arc. We also see a lot more of the Skull Knight, even though he's still really mysterious. And of course, can't talk about the Millennium Falcon arc without talking about the Berserker armor. I almost forgot about the Berserker armor, I'm not gonna lie. But the Berserker armor was a huge introduction. Guts looks absolutely badass in the Berserker armor, looks so sick, and it's a great addition to him because in order to eventually take down Griffith, which sadly we know is not going to happen, he needs the Berserker armor, and it's something extremely important towards his strength in the story. Guts versus Grunbild was one of my favorite fights as well in Berserk. It was just pure hype with the Berserker armor and everything. And of course, we see Shurka being able to eventually tame the Berserker armor, which is really important moving forward in the story. Overall, the Millennium Falcon arc, in my opinion, the second greatest arc in Berserk. Now, we talk about the greatest arc in Berserk, and it's obviously the Golden Age. It's no surprise that the Golden Age ends up at number 1 because, let's be honest, it's the greatest arc in Berserk. In my opinion, it's the greatest arc in manga, period. It's the greatest arc ever. It has absolutely everything you need. There's no better way to describe it. It has everything, and I don't really want to spoil the Eclipse, but the Eclipse was what really put it above all else. If it wasn't for the Eclipse, it would be a bit lower, but it would still be an incredible arc. With the Eclipse, it just goes above and beyond. The Eclipse was one of the biggest plot twists and biggest climaxes in fiction, period. It was ridiculous, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. Besides the Eclipse, though, there's a lot of foreshadowing towards the Eclipse, a lot of development in Griffith and Guts' character, their friendship before the Eclipse. Unfortunately, yes. Of course, Casca and Guts' relationship, the Band of the Hawk, Guts and Griffith versus Zod. There was just so much going on in the Golden Age arc, and it was an absolutely beautiful arc. I can't even go on speaking about it without spoiling a crazy amount of things, even though I've already spoiled a lot in this video. But the Golden Age arc just had absolutely everything you need in a good arc. It had Guts' backstory, which we'd been needing since the Black Swordsman arc. The Golden Age was just brilliant. It was one of the greatest arcs in manga, period, in my opinion. and it is definitely the greatest arc in Berserk. So there it is. We have, starting at number 5, the Black Swordsman, Fantasia, Conviction, Millennium Falcon, and of course the Golden Age. That is my top 5 arcs in Berserk, and that is ranking every arc in Berserk from worst to best. I know I don't do these kind of videos at all actually. This is my first kind of ranking video, but I haven't been feeling doing that kind of analysis video recently, so I just thought I'd sit down, not script the video, and just talk about my favorite arcs in Berserk. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know your rankings for the arcs in Berserk in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and as always, take care and peace.